Look in your kitchen. The sparkling water, the coffee pods, the KitKat, the ice cream, the cereal, maybe the cat food. There's a good chance a huge share of it was made by a single company. And in 2024, that company got caught faking one of those products at the source. The company is Nestle. It's the largest food company on Earth. It markets around 2,000 brands, and most people can only name a handful of them. San Pellegrino is Nestle. Perrier is Nestle. Häagen-Dazs, KitKat, Nesquik, Maggi, Hot Pockets, DiGiorno, Purina, Vital Proteins, all Nestle. It even still owns about a fifth of L'Oreal, which means it reaches into your bathroom too. You have been buying from this one company your entire life, probably without ever deciding to. And that scale is exactly why what it does matters. You already know the old stories, the baby formula boycott from the 70s, the executive who said water shouldn't be a human right. Those have been covered 1,000 times. This video is about what they've done recently, the documented cases from the last 2 years that barely made it to your feed. And it starts with the bubbles. Start with Perrier, because this one is almost unbelievable. Under European and French law, any water sold as natural mineral water has to be exactly that, pure at the source, untreated. It's the entire reason it costs more than tap water. In 2024, Nestlé Waters admitted it had been secretly treating that water for years, using purification methods that are banned for natural mineral water, ultraviolet light, carbon filters. Water it sold as untouched by human hands had, in fact, been quietly cleaned up behind the scenes. Nestle paid a €2 million settlement to avoid prosecution. And then it gets worse, because a French Senate commission investigated, and in May of 2025, they concluded that the French government itself had known since at least 2022 and helped conceal it. The commission's report described a bottling plant with sliding cabinets that hid the illegal treatment equipment from inspectors. France's own fraud agency estimated the scale of the deception at over €3 billion. That same year, after storm flooding, roughly 2 million Perrier bottles were ordered destroyed when tests near the source found bacteria of fecal origin. Nestle called it a microbiological deviation and maintains the bottles that reached stores were safe. Now move from the water to the baby food, because this is the one that's hardest to hear. In April 2024, an investigation by the Swiss group Public Eye, published in the journal BMJ Global Health, tested more than 100 Nestle baby food products sold across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. They found that Nestle was adding sugar to infant cereals and formula in poorer countries, while selling the exact same products with no added sugar in wealthier ones. The same Cerelac baby cereal that has 0 added sugar in Switzerland, Germany, and the UK contained around 6 grams of added sugar per serving in places like Senegal and South Africa. In the Philippines, one product for babies 6 months and older hit over 7 grams. The World Health Organization advises against any added sugar for infants because it shapes a lifelong preference for sweetness. Nestle disputes this strongly. It says it does not have double standards, that its nutrition approach is consistent, and that it has been reducing added sugar across its baby food range. But the documents showed the gap, and after the report, India's food safety regulator opened an investigation. Here's one you can see every morning, the Nespresso pod. Nespresso built one of the most elegant traps in modern business, the same one used for razors and printer ink. Sell the machine cheap, then lock the customer into pods only you are allowed to make. A magazine analysis by Time worked out that coffee bought as Nespresso capsules costs around $137 per kilogram, several times the price of the same coffee loose. And when a competitor called Ethical Coffee Company started making cheaper compatible pods, its founder accused Nespresso of redesigning its machines specifically to block rival capsules. France's competition authority found that Nespresso had indeed modified its machines 4 times in a way that appeared to abuse its dominant position and forced it to change. The rival company went bankrupt in 2018, its founder blaming a war of attrition. Meanwhile, Nespresso sells billions of little aluminum capsules a year, and by its own numbers, only about 30% get recycled, which means most of them, billions, end up in landfill. And if you're wondering whether the company privately knows all this, it does. In 2021, the Financial Times obtained a leaked internal Nestlé presentation. In it, The company admitted to its own executives that more than 60% of its mainstream food and drink products do not meet a recognized definition of health. The document went further. It said that some of its categories will never be healthy, quote, no matter how much we renovate. That's not a critic saying it. That's Nestlé, in its own internal slides. This pattern shows up in the water again, on the other side of the world. In California, Nestlé pumped millions of gallons a year out of a national forest using a federal permit that had technically expired in 1988, decades earlier, while paying the government just $524 a year for it. In Michigan, it paid around $200 a year for a permit to pump up to nearly 600,000 gallons a day. In a deal so unpopular, the state received over 80,000 public comments against it, and just 75 in favor. To be fair, Nestlé sold off its North American water brands in 2021, so a different company runs those now. But for years, that was the arrangement. A global corporation extracting a public resource for the price of a used car. There's the Maggi noodles you might have grown up with, too. In 2015, India's food regulator banned Maggi after tests found excess lead, and Nestlé had to destroy around 400 million packets, though the ban was later overturned on appeal and the product came back. And there's the cocoa in the chocolate, where in 2021, the U.S. Supreme Court heard a case from 6 men who say they were trafficked as child slaves onto Ivory Coast cocoa farms that supplied companies including Nestlé. The court ruled 8-1 that they couldn't sue in American courts. But it's important to be precise here. That was a decision about jurisdiction, about where a lawsuit can be filed, not a ruling that Nestlé did nothing wrong. The underlying problem is real and documented. A University of Chicago study estimated over 1.5 million children were working in cocoa in Ivory Coast and Ghana. So step back and look at the whole shape of it. One company, around 2,000 brands in nearly every room of your home. Water sold as pure that wasn't. Baby food sweetened in poor countries but not rich ones. A leaked admission that most of its products aren't healthy. Public water pumped for pocket change. Whichever individual story you set aside, and Nestlé disputes many of them, the pattern is the thing. When a company is this large, its decisions stop being about products on a shelf and start being about what billions of people put in their bodies without ever getting to vote on how it was made. You didn't choose Nestlé, that's the point. When one company owns this much of what you eat and drink, opting out was never really on the menu. The most you can do is know whose hand is on the products in your kitchen. And now, at least, you do.